Alright, I want to leave a couple thoughts real quick before next week and the week after about MULN. This may be my last video until potentially the squeeze or a reverse split. But I want to give you all the positive news because it is all positive. So, after that, I'm also going to talk about veganism, Christianity, Tristan Tate, which is Andrew Tate's little brother, and some vegan dude that they did a 2-hour podcast, and they said they weren't debating, but they were debating. But Tristan Tate definitely won the debate by trying not to debate, but at the same time, if I was in that room and I was trying for whatever reason to defend veganism, he went to the Bible and I would have gone to the Bible, and clearly I wouldn't have defended veganism, but he said that he's read the Bible many times, but he also said that he lives by the Old Testament teachings, and the New Testament says the Old Testament's done with, and the New Testament's all that matters. So anyone that's still reading the Old Testament as a way to live their life is just a little mentally retarded, unfortunately. But let's go ahead and talk about MULN now. So, first thing I want to say is, if they don't squeeze this next week, the volume's going to go above 200 million. We're going to see 3, 4, 500 million, no problem. If we do squeeze, we're probably going to see 10 billion in volume. If we go up to $1 slowly over 2 weeks and then squeeze, maybe we'll see as high as 5 billion volume because the price is already higher. But on our biggest up day, we're going to see the biggest volume, and it's going to be record-breaking volume of all time, and it's going to be beautiful. So don't you worry about that. Now what I want to explain is the history of MULN. So MULN, like AMC, started out with 500 million shares when they went public and really launched themselves to the market back in February of 2022. They go up a couple 100% in 2 days, and then they come back down from 50 cents to $2, and then $2 back down to 72 cents. And then over a month we ran to $4.18. Ever since then, basically what happened is that 500 million shares they had to dilute. From the time it went up the 300% in a day, they diluted 100 million shares, and then after that, during the next month, they diluted another 200 million shares, and then from April all the way to July, they diluted the last 200 million shares. And so that's what happened with AMC, kind of. It started over the course of 14 months, but it really got popular in January of 2021, and then it squoze in May of 2021. And the difference with MULN and AMC is AMC went to have a dilution vote where they get another billion shares, and the retail vote holders voted no, so they pulled the vote off the table, saying we have to listen to our retail vote shareholders. Well, with MULN, they won the vote. They basically announced the vote and the record date of when you're allowed to vote as May 31st, and at that point, for a dilution vote, 51% of stockholders at the record date have to vote yes, and they literally had 51%. And so you can tell that they were just diluting until the point where they only had 51% left that they could dilute, and then they announced that they own all those shares, and then they announced the dilution vote, and then they keep diluting to us and keep crashing the stock price all the way until the dilution vote. Then they give themselves another billion shares, they dilute that and crash the price another 90% over the next 4 months, 5 months, and then they announce another dilution vote for 3.5 billion shares for a total of 5.5 billion shares for another dilution vote, and drops the price another 90%. Then they do a reverse split and bring it from 6 cents all the way up to $1.55, and then they crash it another 90%. And then David Mitry finally says these people that have been taking all the dilution money because it wasn't going to MULN, they loaned MULN a fat stack of cash so that MULN could guarantee the ground startup, but they got to take all the profits that came from retail believing the technology of MULN, believing David Mitchery, and the 14 years he's put in 5 different EV companies to bring all the best things together so that we can have a generational change in technology and all these good things. And so we, after the reverse split, we crashed to 90%, all the way down to 10 cents, more than 90%, honestly. And they announced the reverse split, but when they announced this reverse split, there was 3.5 billion shares outstanding. And so if you divide the 3.5 billion shares by 25, which is what they did, that means all those 3.5 billion shares were reduced down to, like, I think it's 150 million shares. And so we started with 150 million shares. Before I even started pumping, right as I came back, they already announced that the float was 6 or 700 million shares, which means they diluted, and they announced since the reverse split. And then since we've hit the 2 billion shares traded in a day and all these great things and just consistent record high volume compared to the rest of the market, they haven't announced any more dilution. And so here's the summation of what I'm trying to get at, is that let's just say there's 2.5 billion shares outstanding right now and we haven't been announced yet. Well, and that means they've diluted another 1.5 billion shares in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Well, what that would mean is that they have another half a billion share, or another billion shares, half a billion to a billion. I'm not sure, like, I can't remember the exact number, but it's 500 million to a billion shares, and we still have another 6 or 7 trading days until the reverse split is even voted on. And so here's my argument, is that if we were to buy 100% of all the stocks that they can dilute, so if they have another 500 million shares, if we buy all those, and right now at 15 cents a share, that's $75 million. That's literally nothing. Like, AMC got $500 million invested into them in 2 weeks, 4 different times, just from retail. And like, they come out with this big announcement, Wanda no longer owns. They come out with this big announcement, Adam Aaron gave away a bunch of shares, and these people sold their shares, and a bunch of insiders selling all their shares. Dilution announcements. And so all these things happen, and the point is that if we reverse split right now and we do a 100 to 1 reverse split and we're at $15, well, if they announced before the reverse split that all the shares were diluted, or let's just say all but 10 million shares were diluted, then when that reverse split happens, it happens to their shares as well. And now at that $15, they only have 10 million shares. And what is that? $150 million? And so $150 million, like, you got to understand, when AMC squoze back in June 2021 or end of May 2021, they had 100 million shares left to dilute, and they only needed 50 million of them, and the price was at $12, and it went to 30 that week, and then went to 60. So if you assume like an average of like $20 a dilution price, well, $20 times 100 million shares is $200 million to dilute, right? No, it's $2 billion to dilute 100 million shares. And so it's $2 billion to dilute. And so the point is that they had way more dilution power left before the squeeze, but they knew that the squeeze was going to bring in something called FOMO and cause a lot of buying power. So they had to let it rise enough so that their dilution power was guaranteed to withstand any potential FOMO. And so my argument is that if we keep buying this next week and volume starts to go up again, and they announce the dilution and the outstanding shares before the August 3rd vote, like, just look at the number and you'll be able to see how many shares they should roughly have left. They started with 2.3 billion when we had 150 million outstanding. And so that actually sounds like the most it can be is 2.5 billion outstanding. And if that's true, and we know it was 700 million a month ago, then that means they only had 1.8 billion shares left to dilute in the last month, since we've traded 10 billion shares, 7 billion shares, or whatever it is. And so Yeah, I mean, just have faith. If the reverse split happens, understand that the market cap is what decides the value of a stock. It is not the stock price. Like the reason you see HKD, that China company, go from $10 to $4,000 is because it's based off the market cap. And that stock also didn't have options. So when it goes up to $4,000, nobody gets hurt. But when MULN goes up, if it reverse splits to $15 and they have no dilution left, we're going to $4,000 a share. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like, don't let it mess with your mind, because it literally changes nothing. Mathematically speaking, dollar for dollar speaking, if they have no dilution left, it changes zero. So this should be like all the encouragement for you to go buy. I found this church a couple miles away that holds services, so I'm gonna go check it out, because after I get this money, I'm definitely either finding the perfect church to join that will just basically anoint me their leader, or I'm going to build my own church. Only two options. And so let's go see what they say today. I'm always interested. I'm always listening.